The nephron, the structural and functional unit of the kidney. Hello everyone, and welcome back. In today's lesson, we're going to take a deep dive into one of the most fascinating structures in the human body. Although the nephron is microscopic and cannot be seen with the naked eye, it performs an incredible amount of work. In fact, each kidney contains approximately 1 million nephrons, meaning both kidneys together contain nearly 2 million nephrons, and every single one of them is working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to define the nephron, identify the different parts of the nephron, explain the blood supply to the nephron, understand how urine is formed, and appreciate the important functions performed by this amazing microscopic structure. So, let's begin. What is a nephron? The nephron is the structural and functional unit of the kidney. What does that mean? It means that the nephron is the smallest part of the kidney that can perform all of the kidney's functions. As you can see on your screen, each nephron consists of two major parts. First, the renal corpuscle, and second, the renal tubule. Let's look at each of these in detail. The renal corpuscle. The renal corpuscle is the region where blood filtration begins. It is composed of two structures, the glomerulus, Bowman's capsule. The glomerulus. The glomerulus is a tuft or network of tiny capillaries. As you can see in the illustration, it looks like a ball of tangled blood vessels. Blood enters the glomerulus through a vessel called the afferent arteriole. The word afferent simply means coming toward. So the afferent arteriole brings blood into the glomerulus. Blood then leaves the glomerulus through another vessel called the efferent arteriole. The word efferent means going away. Therefore, the efferent arteriole carries blood away from the glomerulus. An interesting fact is that the afferent arteriole is usually wider than the efferent arteriole. This difference in size creates a high pressure inside the glomerulus, which is necessary for filtration. Bowman's capsule. Surrounding the glomerulus is a cup-shaped structure called Bowman's capsule. Think of Bowman's capsule as a bowl collecting everything that is filtered out of the blood. The fluid collected inside Bowman's capsule is called the glomerular filtrate. This filtrate contains water, electrolytes, glucose, amino acids, urea, and other small molecules. However, blood cells and large proteins remain inside the bloodstream because they are too large to pass through the filtration membrane. Filtration occurs, the filtrate enters the renal tubule. The renal tubule consists of the proximal convoluted tubule, the loop of Henle, the distal convoluted tubule, and the collecting duct. Let's discuss them one by one. The proximal convoluted tubule, commonly called the PCT, is the first part of the renal tubule. The word convoluted means twisted. As you can see in the illustration, this segment has numerous twists and turns. The PCT is one of the busiest parts of the nephron. In fact, approximately 65 to 70% of the filtered water and sodium are reabsorbed here. Almost all of the glucose, amino acids, vitamins, and many important nutrients are reabsorbed in this region. You can think of the PCT as the body's recycling center. Anything valuable that accidentally entered the filtrate is reclaimed here. The loop of Henle. The filtrate then enters the loop of Henle. As you can see on your screen, the loop of Henle consists of a descending limb, an ascending limb. These two limbs have very different functions. Descending limb of the loop of Henle. The descending limb is highly permeable to water. This means water can easily leave this segment. However, it is relatively impermeable to sodium and other salts. As the filtrate travels downward, large amounts of water leave the tubule and enter the surrounding tissues. As a result, the filtrate becomes more concentrated. Ascending limb of the loop of Henle. The ascending limb behaves differently. It is impermeable to water. However, sodium and chloride ions are actively transported out of the tubule. As a result, the filtrate becomes more dilute. This process plays a major role in helping the kidneys concentrate urine when necessary. The distal convoluted tubule. The filtrate enters the distal convoluted tubule, commonly called the DCT. This segment is responsible for the fine-tuning of the filtrate. The DCT is heavily influenced by hormones. For example, aldosterone increases the reabsorption of sodium and increases the secretion of potassium. Parathyroid hormone increases the reabsorption of calcium. This means that the DCT helps maintain the body's electrolyte balance. The collecting duct. The filtrate enters the collecting duct. Several nephrons empty into a single collecting duct. This structure is responsible for determining the final concentration of urine. The collecting duct is strongly influenced by a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, also known as ADH. When ADH levels are high, more water is reabsorbed. As a result, less urine is produced and the urine becomes concentrated. When ADH levels are low, less water is reabsorbed. As a result, more urine is produced and the urine becomes dilute. This is why you urinate more after drinking large amounts of water. Types of nephrons. There are two major types of nephrons. Cortical nephrons. Approximately 85% of nephrons are cortical nephrons. Their loops of Henle are relatively short. They are mainly involved in filtration and reabsorption. Juxtamedullary nephrons. Approximately 15% are juxtamedullary nephrons. As you can see in the illustration, they possess very long loops of Henle that extend deep into the renal medulla. These nephrons are primarily responsible for producing concentrated urine. Without them, humans would lose enormous amounts of water every day. Blood supply of the nephron. Now let's trace the journey of blood through the nephron. The renal artery divides into smaller arteries until it forms the afferent arteriole. The afferent arteriole enters the glomerulus. Blood is then filtered. The remaining blood exits through the efferent arteriole. The efferent arteriole then forms networks of capillaries called the peritubular capillaries and the vasa recta. These vessels surround the tubules and participate in the process of reabsorption and secretion. Finally, the blood drains into veins and eventually leaves the kidney through the renal vein. Functions of the nephron. The nephron performs numerous vital functions, including removing waste products from the blood, regulating water balance, regulating electrolyte levels, maintaining acid-base balance, helping regulate blood pressure, conserving nutrients such as glucose and amino acids, producing concentrated or dilute urine depending on the body's needs. If you enjoyed this lesson, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our educational videos. Thank you so much for watching.